robbery. Hands in the sky if you got a dream. Learn nothing was blocking me. I was the problem, the only one stopping me. I didn't like it, I had to refocus. Now I'm devoted, I know where I'm going. Controlling emotions, I'm owning the moment. In order to get it, see, you gotta want it. If I make a living break, confessions over these 808s. Don't sleep on the key, better stay away. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'ma be the best. Came from the endless, lane walk games, bitch with the chest. Beating on my chest, trying to get my rest. Watch me while I flex. Every win is a blessing, and every L is a lesson. So when I run into rejection, I know it's only redirection. I see the blessings right beside me. The chances of quitting are likely. I do it like I'm in my Nikes. Don't make excuses, they never excite me. Quitting was never an option.
Tonight, we set the field for next week's event with the online Speedway Racing League Princeton Drugstore Duels at Daytona. Obviously leading up to their premier Daytona race next week. It's season 11 here as the OSRL takes on another great season of Gen 4 action. And tonight, you've got two 30-lap heats that will set the inside and outside row of the field for next week. I'm here with Ross Brockman. We're here on Split Second Broadcasting. And Ross, I just want to ask, what are you feeling for tonight's race?
I'm excited. It's always fun to get back behind the mic and watch these guys here at Daytona on the old bumpy Daytona in these cars, and yeah, to have two races. It's always fun to see, kind of get some vibes of just like what the racing's going to be like, what this league is going to be like for this season. Kind of a great test run for next weekend, but there's stuff on the line. Of course, we got to see who qualifies in, who makes the show, with a 41 car field next week. So it'll be fun to watch that. I think this is a 30-lap race with no need for a pit stop is what I'm seeing. So I think this is going to be all out, go for the win. And I looking back at some of the stats in the past, a lot of our Daytona winners have had great success in the duel earlier the week before. So we'll see if that a good run tonight will pay dividends for next week.
I was trying to see if last season's winner is in this field tonight. It doesn't look like it. Ethan Porter won season 10 at Daytona, but do have Cole Freilich in the field, who I believe won the previous season before that and has the most wins at Daytona, including one of the duels here last year. So we're gonna have to keep an eye out on him, and we'll also do our best to keep you updated on who's gonna be in the show and who's unfortunately gonna go home. But to Ross's point, two 30-lap duels tonight, and we'll wait for them to grid and get you a rundown as soon as we can. But with bumpy Daytona, the Gen 4, how this draft package really works, you're going to see a good bit of side drafting and probably a lot of two-lane racing, but it's going to take a lot of effort from both sides to really make that work. Brockman, do you have any thoughts on how aggressive these guys may or may not be here?
Yeah, just watching a little bit of their practice beforehand, before we jumped on here, and they were getting after it, which is that's a good chance to kind of see what you got and see how it's gonna race. I think that there's always this fear when you come to the new season, like, okay, how is the car change, and if there's some changes to it. I heard some of the guys in practice even talking about, it might kind of get single file at times if especially late in the run, but this is a short enough race that I don't think we'll have that. Maybe we'll see more of that next week, but I think, it's going to be a lot of two lanes trying to get to the lead and try to hold the lead, because I think track position matters a ton when you're on this old bumpy Daytona. So we'll see if starting up front is going to be the way to go, because I think that, though it's a smaller field, it's going to be very important to stay up front and try to avoid the chaos in the back.
I was going to say, I agree with that a lot. Obviously, the track position will matter with how this track works, and tire wear will potentially be a factor towards the end of those 30 laps. Not a huge factor, but just enough, as well as kind of the aero package that these cars feature. And just the fact that usually one duel is a little bit messier than the other one. So I think everybody that's going to show up for Duel 2 is definitely keeping their eye on what happens here. And hopefully, you know, if this one gives a big show, the other ones will be a little bit more relaxed in Duel 2, but you never really know. So we'll have to see how that all boils down. But right now, we can tell you that Jack Painter, Ashley Kolonix, both will start on pole for Duel 1 and then Duel 2. They are locked into the Speedway 200 for next week. And everyone past that is either having to race their way in, and we'll get you the starting lineup. On row 1, you can see Jack Painter will line up next to Nate Stewart.
Row 2, a former Daytona 200 winner, Mo Perry, in the 31, and next to Mo is the 39 of Aiden Walker.
And then starting 5th, you've got Tristan Baker in the 51 with Cole Freilich, the winningest Daytona driver in OSRL competition. Is outside the 6th.
Starting at 7th is the 70 of Harry Grindell. Starting 8th, the 53 of Griffin Jones.
Justin Knutson will start 9th with Wesley Person to his outside in 10th.
Starting 11th is Owen Chybinski, and the 52 of Nolan Sanford will start 12th.
Michael Deach will line up 13th with Emery Spence rolling off 14th.
Couple OSRL regulars here starting 15th and 16th with Marty Farrell in the 24 and Nathan Kiani in the 17.
Austin Rip will be 17th with Ruby Estes 18th.
Starting 19th, the 02 of John Daniels. I think he'll be moving up through the field here in this first race. Starting to his right, the number 4 of Adam Harrington.
Noah Carmichael roll off 21st with Isaac Johnson, rounding out the first duel in 22nd. You're going to watch OSRL do their normal drive down pit road before everything gets going. They like to do that, make sure everybody knows exactly what their pit speed is, know where their box is. So that gives us a second, Brockman, to kind of talk about how important really that is. I mean, obviously we talked about they're probably not going to pit, but just knowing where your box is and kind of getting rid of that antsiness of if you do have to pit road, how all those procedures are going to be tonight.
Yeah, you know, the one thing I like about this is, like, we see this now a lot of times in real life racing. This is a sim. We're trying to make it as real life as possible. It looks cool to see everybody come down and check their pit box. I would say, yeah, in most races it is nice to know, okay, there are those moments where you're like, wait, where's my box? I haven't used it, because you don't really know where it is until you grid. So great opportunity to learn that, though I don't think we'll be going down pit road. If you're going down pit road tonight, you're probably in trouble. So I think that your goal is to stay on track and try to run all 30 of these laps. The top 16 advance into the race, and I know that we have, you know, even if all racers race, I think we're only going to have 1 or 2 that maybe won't make it next week. So we'll have to see, maybe kind of keep an eye on that top 16, but ultimately we'll see if a large majority of the drivers here tonight are going to be racing next week.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to update you by the time this is all said and done. Obviously, with 22 cars, a 41 car field, odds are maybe 1 or 2 people end up going home. Duel 2 looks like it's about 22 cars, so potentially 2 drivers total going to end up going home. It's a 43 car entry into a 41 car field. We'll come off turn 4 and see that green flag. Any final thoughts here, Brockman, before we get this kicked off?
Yeah, I'm excited to see if, like you said, is this going to be the chaotic one? Is one going to be the calm one? We'll see which one this is, and if the other one goes the opposite way. Otherwise, maybe both will be exciting. Should be fun to watch.
Well, Jack Painter on pole, Nate Stewart to his outside, Morpheus, Perry, Aiden Walker behind them. Will come off turn 4 into the short chute. Pace car hits pit road. And we wait for the green flag. We are racing at Daytona here for OSRL Season 11. Jack Painter to jump, but it's Nate Stewart actually getting past the line first with Morpheus Perry on his back bumper pushing into turn 1.
Top had the goal right at the start with Nate Stewart there, and kind of connected a little bit better and just maybe a little bit more organized. We'll see if that 81 decides to do anything as far as change lanes, if you're going to keep that top lane rolling.
I would say from what I've experienced here, it definitely feels like one lane, whichever one it is, takes off really well and everybody kind of abandons and goes to that popular lane. It looks like right now it's the top. I've seen races where it is just a bottom feeding frenzy, but that top lane took off. Nate Stewart's going to lead this lap with Morpheus Perry clear as well. Looks like about back to third and fourth. Cole Freylich as well as Griffin Jones, I believe, are all clear across the line. Nate Stewart leads lap one.
This is a little bit, I saw a little bit of this in practice with that top lane is. Kind of gives you a little bit of momentum. You can kind of keep the power down a little bit better maybe than that bottom lane. See, you know, for Painter, basically, you kind of get beat on the start there and fall back a little bit. Now you're losing a lot of track position just immediately because this top lane has really worked pretty well so far.
Where maybe the cars are kind of bottled up on the bottom, but they're not really having to shove or push. You can see the top lane honestly doing a bit of pushing. With the Speedway, the Super Speedway package here, the buffer is obviously a little bit lower, so they can get away with that. But in some cases, you'll see the bottom lane having to push a little bit harder than the top lane. I'm just wondering if it's maybe momentum driven, if these guys on the bottom kind of can't push, or maybe they just don't want to be aggressive enough, and it's just kind of working for the top's advantage. But the bottom lane's starting to come back a little bit as they come off turn 2.
Sleep Person on the inside lane started 10th, got that opportunity up on that outside lane and jump down to the inside when that top lane got rolling. And I think the first lap or so there down on the bottom just kind of, you know, was kind of all over the place a little bit. Now kind of a little more calm now, and I think it's working. They're moved up to about third here in line, trying to get that bottom lane rolling. I think that yeah, that's the key. Is like obviously those first two, if they stay connected a little bit better, stay close together. I think that first lap or two, they were kind of unorganized. Now they're rolling, and they might have a chance at the lead here in a little bit.
Like with anything, this is very momentum driven, and you can get the car in front of you pretty out of shape. You see the bottom line actually come down, try to gain some ground via side draft there through the middle of the corner. Not aggressively, but just enough to kind of catch momentum on corner exit. They're side by side down the backstretch now, as Kirsten's going to get nose out over Nate Stewart. But it looks like Jack Painter's just a really good pusher. I wonder if maybe, oh, they almost touched there. I wonder if Perry was a little bit nervous on the go and didn't get to Painter good enough. Painter kind of hooked up really well and got them going, but that side draft messed them up, and Nate Stewart across the line again.
Wesley Person had to really check up off of 4 there. It kind of just killed all that momentum they had, the ability to get all the way up there. Now we're going to see maybe a few drivers. Looks like Freylich's going to try to jump down to the bottom here, make a move. Looks like that Sanford going with them.
Looks to be. And I think the hardest thing these guys are going to battle is kind of the aero with these cars, because the side draft and the pushing together can make the car really upset and loose as they're wrecking right there. Couldn't tell who that was, just got turned, but I believe it was a 12 Emery Spence.
Marty Farrell getting the worst of it there, going up and over. Back rolling though, lots of damage there.
I was not prepared for that. I thought Spence was just kind of going into the corner and didn't really have an issue, and the 5 didn't really have anywhere to go. A lot of good cars taken out in this. We're going to go ahead and get a replay. You can see the 5 kind of hits a 12. And there's Morpheus Perry, the 51 of Tristan Baker involved, the 17 of Nathan Chiani, the 24 wall riding, that's Marty
I guess if you get kind of unorganized, and then it's really easy just to like kind of go for the same spot. I think the 12 is running just a little bit high there, trying to gather it back up, and then sometimes you make a decision like, okay, I need to get back kind of off the wall. You gotta save it and maybe try to get in the wall a little bit there, and then see, it's just kind of the time you get it off the wall, somebody's already to your inside, and around you go.
Yeah, that wreck really kind of jumped out to me. I wasn't. Kind of just got a little bit high and wasn't aware that the wall was that close, and you snag that wall in these cars and it'll bite you. Like the metal body, basically, you get sucked into it, and at that point Emery Spence is just kind of a passenger in the car. He tried to turn to get off the wall, and the doesn't really help the situation. So yeah, I think out of all this, the big winner, Nate Stewart, made that lane work. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys decide to work this, because we were talking about how Cole Freilich and Nolan Sanford tried to go back to the down to the bottom to pass them, but now they're going to be basically a row behind them and have to work it out against each other. And we'll have to see exactly which lane takes off or which lane Nate Stewart picks. But really tough luck for a lot of these guys that are trying to race their way in.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing, some of these drivers are fixing damage. It looks like to me we got some fast, we'll just say it, fast repairs for some of these drivers. They're able to get back out there. I think some of these drivers that were in that accident are going to be okay here, just losing your track position and potentially losing your opportunity to fix your car very quickly here. So we'll see if that's the case. Nolan Sanford up 8 spots. Up into 4th. That's about the highest we've seen anyone move up. Austin Ripp is also up 8 spots in 9th. So even in that short run we had, and we had the moment of that top lane kind of starting off and getting rolling, just being able to pick up about 8 spots, that ain't too bad. I think you're going to take that if you're any of these drivers that were mid-pack trying to move up.
Yeah, you mentioned that. There are a bunch of cars back here that were heavily damaged and are no longer damaged. Marty Farrell, Emery Spence. Looks like they did have at least one fast repair, potentially more. That might be either a server mix-up or just what they do for the fact this is technically an exhibition race, and maybe they want to give everyone a fair chance to qualify into the event. So regardless, definitely at least one fast repair. We'll have to see how that turns out. And just a quick update, Isaac Johnson did not start the event. We'll have to see if he's one of the lock-in drivers, or if this affects who gets locked in over Duel 2 and who starts next week. Because if that's the case, then I think borderline everybody should run or should start the event via the amount of people in this race. I think maybe one still goes home, but we'll hopefully get you updated on all that by the time this is all said and done. Nate Stewart picks the bottom as we get halfway down the backstretch, getting ready to take this restart on lap 9 of 30.
Yeah, this gives you an opportunity in this race, in good and bad. The good thing is this is a great opportunity to kind of learn and see what maybe see what drivers you're comfortable racing around, maybe find some fast friends for next week, because it's always great to have people that will go with you on a drafting track. But it's also a good opportunity to a race that doesn't come with any points, just the stakes of making sure you get into the show and get your starting spot for next week. You don't want to make any enemies this early in the season before really race number 1. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamics as they come from this race. If people working together translates into next week.
Well, I know for a fact I'd want to pick Cole Freilich on my side. Pace car off. Green flag is now out. Nate Stewart will lead them down from the bottom. Cole Freilich right behind him. Freilich has been really good here, and we know how good Nate Stewart is. Those two both clear Aiden Walker. Nolan Sanford also filled the hole. So basically the opposite of what we had the first time. Whole bottom lane is going to be filled up here with a big gap. After about 5th or 6th, they're all starting to file in, but the top lane is all but abandoned at this point with about the top 5 or 6 clear down the backstretch.
Yeah, I think that just seems like what we're getting so far on these restarts. It seems to be pretty easy for a couple of drivers to kind of get away, and if the others just decide to fall in line, then it makes it really easy to get the single file line. I think it'll take a few laps and we'll get back to some double file at some point, though this front 5 here is kind of getting away.
I'm gonna say just like that, we go right back to the top, which is really interesting, but I wonder if that's just because of how bumpy the bottom is. These guys know that the top really rolls here, and if you have enough cars, it's genuinely faster. And yeah, we've seen with this package that 4 or 5 cars were faster than the rest of the field, but you really need to break that draft off. So you can see 6th on back ended up catching up. But the more you side draft someone back there, I think it's about 8th right now with Knutson and Rip side by side. They have a chance to potentially lose the pack. Sorry, that's Estes. I believe it was Harrington that were side by side, but they stopped racing. Everybody gets caught right back up. But top lane flowing, Nate Stewart leading, coming to complete lap 10, taking us to lap 11.
Unfortunately for the 53, Griffin Jones decided to try the inside and now moving backwards. Just had an opportunity to maybe get back in line, but decided to stay low and is going to lose a bunch of track position. Here comes Freilich jumping out of the bottom, looks like. Don't know if that's interesting to pull out by himself. He might have an issue.
I don't think that was on purpose. Yeah, he just had packet loss issues. So connectivity problems for Cole Freilich running 2nd. And that said, Nolan Sanford went to the bottom with a big run because it kind of, the 39 of Aiden Walker caught Nate Stewart, and Nolan, I guess, thought they were all going to go down there. Aiden didn't move, so Nolan Sanford will lose out on this train. And we were just talking about Griffin Jones going to the bottom. He got sent out by Wesley Person. Wesley Person got to his top side, and that's what put Griffin back there. So Wesley gets up to 3rd as I think Nate Stewart almost caught the wall there. Still leading down the backstretch, lap 12 now.
Looks like Nathan Chiani moving backwards, getting into the wall a little bit towards the back of that long line we got going here now. Stewart kind of ran down to the middle of the lane there to the corner. I don't know if that was just kind of give Walker the opportunity to get some air, or at least see what's ahead. Clear track in front of these guys, and I think if you're any of these drivers in the top 5, you're probably like, okay, yeah, this is okay. Let's just go to the end and see what we got. You also maybe kind of wonder, like, does this give you a kind of a false sense of how this car and this pack will race, where next week you're going to have a full field out there, maybe a lot different?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, especially with it being a half field, essentially. Obviously, more momentum, much better than less momentum. So having only 20 cars and only being able to make kind of 2 lines of 10, it just doesn't look like they can really build enough to run side by side. Granted, they did it early on. They're just kind of struggling now. But yeah, I'm also interested in why Nate's kind of running a lower lane. He's gone back up now, and he's running in front of Aiden. But I just wonder if that aero sensitivity from having a car right up behind you is kind of messing with him. So he's trying to run down a little bit so that Aiden gets some clean air and he can get a little bit of air on his own spoiler and not have all that turbulent air right behind him.
And it's really easy, even though this is a shorter race. It still takes a little bit to get through these laps. About a 48-second lap. You do 10-15 laps like this, it kind of gets you in this moment of just kind of maybe not paying attention or not understanding, not knowing when your competitors are maybe going to make a move. So if you're any of these drivers up in this top 6 or so, you got to just be on your toes in case a handful of drivers jump to the inside or make a pass. It can happen at any moment, and you hate to lose all your track position. You want to make sure that if that does happen, if all of a sudden the lane changes, you don't want to be the one that's stuck on the outside. We kind of saw it when Freilich had his issues, how that dropped a couple drivers out of the pack and kind of messed up everything. Just one car changing lanes can sometimes change the whole momentum of the whole line.
I would say you're starting to see this back here towards the back with Morpheus, Perry, and some other guys. Someone caught the wall, and it really messed them up. These 3 back here might lose the draft. I believe that's Owen, Tristan Baker, and Morpheus Perry. And that was the top 16. So all these guys were locked. They were in a really good spot. And Nathan Kiani, Griffin Jones, and Nolan Sanford at all, as well as Adam Harrington, had all lost the pack. So this is going to make that top 16 a little bit different. Everyone in the top 13 safe. They're all in the pack, but Tristan Baker on back. These guys are going to be racing each other as we're halfway through this now.
Yeah, we talked about it, you know, the idea that it's going to be, I would say you still want to finish top 16 because you know that at least you're good, at least you're locked in. But I think if you're a regular in this series, because they're only going to be a handful, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 at the most, that won't make the show for next weekend. I think if you run any races, you can fall back. There is 6 points provisionals, and if you have a large majority of this field that's going to be locking into the top 16, including drivers from last year. I think if you've made some starts and ran a bunch last season, you're probably going to be able to use the points. I look at Perry, who's in right now in 16th, Kiani, Jones, Sanford, some of these guys that have run this league, they probably can fall back on that points, but there's only 6 of them. So I would make sure you want to try to get in that top 16 just to make sure. I think if you're a new driver, you definitely want to make sure so that way you're not one of them that's sitting out. But yeah, right now, you'd never know. These 16 are maybe thinking about that and thinking, well, I don't really want to race. I'm happy with locking in this top 16 spots. But being in 17th right now, it's pretty great because if something does happen, all it takes is one of these drivers having an issue, and you can jump past them pretty easily. Just avoid the wreck if there's a crash here towards the end. So we'll see. 13 to go. I think. Right now, it seems like this front lane is getting away. We got more drivers kind of maybe losing the draft.
I would say it looks like running the top is honestly messing with a few of these guys. They keep catching the wall either on entry or in the middle of the corner. Instead of just running a little bit lower, they try to run right up against the wall. I don't know that there's a massive advantage if you're not that comfortable with being right on the wall to putting yourself there. I think it's a pretty big disadvantage when you end up hitting it, because now we have Michael Dietrich has lost the pack, and Emery Spence and Harry Grandel are borderline almost going to lose it because they keep grabbing the wall, or someone just loses a little bit of pace. We got Jack Painter, our pole sitter, is starting to lose grips with the pack. The pack is going to about 9 cars now. It looks like every other lap, one or two drivers just loses the pack and goes backwards. So I don't know how many cars we're going to end up with, but at this point, no one's going to be able to build a second line because you're just not going to have enough momentum to build.
And this is feeling not only we sometimes think, okay, mid 2000s NASCAR style racing. This is almost like the 70s where you got drivers that are running away, and it's really kind of the draft is part of it, but you're ultimately going to be some single cars getting away from each other and running in different groups. It's this 81 of Stewart. I don't know if ultimately doing a great job of just being able to, like you say, kind of run off the wall a little bit. I think that just gives you a little bit of room if you hit some bumps or move up the track a little bit to stay off that wall. Especially being the leader, you don't want to grab the wall and cause some issues here. But then I think, it's easier for maybe some of the other drivers just to kind of fall in behind and get that false sense of understanding where the wall is and get too close, or even have to let up a little bit just to avoid from hitting it.
Looks like Marty Farrell has fallen off now, so John Daniels is basically on the chopping block of if he makes a mistake, he's losing the draft. So 8 cars remain in this group, 10 laps to go. this last time by, and to your point, Nate Stewart doing a pretty good job up front. And I mean, I don't think he needs to worry about anything. I think for him, it's, you know, if nothing happens and there's no yellow, you just kind of go with what you're doing and hope no one really makes a move. But he is completely at the mercy of whatever Aiden and Person want to do behind him, because if they go to the bottom, they're gonna be able to side draft right around him. So he's definitely in a lose-lose situation, but he's put himself in a really good spot to at least come out with a really good starting position in the Speedway 200. Sorry.
I kind of wonder where, if anything, can happen with this middle of the pack. You know, usually you want to have 2 or 3 cars go with you. Well, the good news about losing some of these other cars for some of these guys in the back half of this group of 8 is if you get 2 or 3 cars going with you, you almost have the same amount of cars as the rest of the pack. So it's not like a bunch of guys will fill in behind you and potentially pass you, and you fall back. You don't have as much to lose here, and you might you pulling out to make a move here at some point might just screw up the rest of the drivers' opportunity to keep the momentum going. They are gonna catch up. We see Freilich is back in the session after having his issues. 2 laps down, gonna go down a 3rd lap, but obviously a guy that's fast. Does he have a say in who he wants to help here, being maybe a couple laps down, or does he move out of the way and let these guys race?
I wonder if he's really going to be able to keep up with where he's at anyway. He might just be, you know, they might just drive around him. I think it's all a psychological game at this point with how they're running. Obviously, there's only 8 of them left, and, you know, the guys towards the back are probably like, well, the guys at the front are going to probably get side by side, and then I can try to make up spots there. So I think your passes will probably come to about 4th or 5th, maybe, unless Aiden Walker decides to make a move. But the top 8 are kind of settled, and, you know, Jack Painter's not up there. He's locked in. So this is all for position in the big show next week. 7 laps to go now.
Freilich staying up on the outside here as Stewart's going to catch him here. We'll see what happens. This might change the energy a little bit. Ultimately kind of separated everybody a little bit here.
And as far as I know right now, with Painter in the top 16, it's 17th. That is the cutoff. So everybody under 17 is at risk of not making the show. That is the transfer spot. So right now the battle is between, I believe, I'm trying to go back and look at where that is. Looks like about where Nathan Chiani is.
Chiani, Jones, and Harrington here, they're all kind of together. Nolan Sanford trying to stick with them here. That yeah, that could be very interesting with Painter being up in that top 16. That means 17 will get in, and Chiani has his 17 car in 17th. So last couple laps, another race to watch here is the race for the win and the race for the final transfer spot.
See, they just hung out Jack Painter there. Not really sure why. He's kind of meaningless to all this because he's, you know, the pole sitter already, and he's locked in, so maybe that's why they held him out there. Like, you don't matter to us, so we don't really care. And it looks like we've lost another driver up here in this main pack. We're dwindling and dwindling quickly. It looks like there's 6 cars now as opposed to the original 8. So yeah, that battle for the transfer spot is all by itself. They're in a pack that's about 4 seconds behind Michael Deitch, who is 16th. So we'll have to see exactly how that all pans out, but that'll be what we watch on the last lap after we watch the race for the win as we close in 5 to go down the backstretch here.
You just wonder what stakes are here for some of these drivers. If you're a newer driver in this league, just making sure that get a good finish, maybe not upset anybody, but it's also bragging rights, trying to win the race. We'll see if something happens there, or if Stewart can hold on to it.
Battle for the transfer spot really quickly. It doesn't look like anyone's really changing. Chiani's leading over Jones, and Harrington will jump back when it gets a little bit more aggressive. Right now, this is kind of the only thing that's happening is we're watching people just fall off the main pack. Right now, Estes is holding on in 6th, but, you know, to their point, that's everything in this group is a top 12 starting spot. So really all you do is move up or down a row depending on where you finish. But if you don't wreck or do anything dumb, you're going to start in the top 12. And for some of these guys, Estes started 18th here. Carmichael started 21st. So those are, borderline last row qualifying spots. Sorry, Carmichael's not in this. It's Estes and Rip that were 18th and 17th to start. That's basically like starting 35th. So now they're starting up inside the top 12. I think they're content to just run where they are. So the moves are probably going to come from Aiden or Person, and we'll just have to see what that all boils down to. 3 to go as they go into turn 1.
Person was, pretty aggressive to jump to the inside early on in this race and try to move up. I think Wesley could be our guy here to try to do something here if he's interested in going for the win. We'll see if he can get some help from Knudsen right behind him in that 16. He just seems to be back a little bit farther. Can't seem to stay with these guys here. They're going to need to be connected or at least close together to get a run.
Yeah, I'd say Person and Walker are probably the 2 guys that can change the fate here amongst everybody else. But as soon as they make their move, anything can happen. And to your point, Knudsen or Rip could easily stay on the top side and break up their little tandem. But you can see Aiden Walker already backing off Nate Stewart. Nate Stewart, big gap now. So the run might happen here down the backstretch. We'll have to keep an eye out as they come off turn 2. 2 to go.
Might have been just a test run for next lap too. Just drop back, see how fast of a run you're gonna get, kind of time it, and figure out where you need it. Gonna back up a little bit more again. You just wonder what Stewart's thinking when you see that. Like, is he trying to slow down a little bit just to make sure? But if you slow down and then that's when they take the run, then you're gonna be hoping that you didn't make that move already.
White flag, and you've got Aiden Walker to the bottom. Nate Stewart's going to be just a brick sitting in the middle of the track. He's going to be taken 3 wide as you've got Knudsen go to the top. Aiden goes back to the top. They're 3 wide for now 3rd, and Aiden Walker is going to lead through turns 1 and 2, but Knudsen's right behind him coming off turn 2.
Could be easy on the pushes with the bumper, but they're going to kind of get away here. It seems like Knudsen now... you wonder, I don't know if it's going to have an opportunity to look into the inside.
Knudsen to the inside. He's only got maybe one more chance at it off the corner, but Aiden Walker getting that little bit of a bubble push away. Aiden Walker off of turn 4 made the move about a lap ago. He will win Duel 1 over Knudsen, and a big battle for the 3rd place spot between Person and Rip. Rip will get that, but it's Aiden Walker as we go back to... I believe that's Nolan Sanford now ahead of Nathan Kiani as they duel the line. Nolan Sanford to the outside, Nathan Kiani on the bottom, Sanford in the wall. It'll be Kiani in the final transfer spot over Nolan Sanford as they finish duel number 1 there, 2 wide.
Sanford was in front of Kiani on the previous lap, but Kiani was able to get back by Sanford there and get that 17th spot and at least lock in for now for Kiani, and to check on Sanford and Harrington and Jones, who are also racing for it there, and if they can get in on a points provisional. But yeah, Aiden Walker, we saw kind of a good mix of being patient, but also being aggressive, and in the couple times early in the race, and then ultimately on that final lap to make the move and get a victory.
I'm impressed with what Justin Knudsen did, kind of pushing Aiden out there. I wonder if he's going to wish that he had that back. They had a big kind of tandem gap ahead of everybody, and I don't know. I wonder if you just take them 2 wide and hope that you can get there, or maybe going 2 wide there pulls everybody back up to you. So I'm sure he's going to question himself for that one a little bit, but either way, now he gets to start 3rd instead of, I believe he would have started about 17th with his standard qualifying lap. So really good adjustment for him, and yeah, I think he'll take that. I don't really know that he could have done anything else.
Yeah, I think when you're, 2 cars like that and you're getting away from the rest of the pack. You kind of in second. You're kind of used to in these super speedway style races, especially on the backstretch where he had maybe the opportunity to make a move. Like you feel like, okay, this might be my, one of a couple chances that I could get a run, but that's if you have multiple people behind you. When it's just kind of the two of you, when you pull out to make that pass, if it doesn't work, and I think ultimately it kind of didn't work and he hesitated, that's just enough to kind of kill the momentum he had there, and it would take a much longer to get the momentum back without the pack behind you. So I think that kind of handed it back to Walker. But yeah, it would have been fun to see if like you say, I think Knutson probably wish he had another opportunity at that, but it would have been fun to see them battling out. But nice job by Walker to really set up Nate Stewart. Nate Stewart ending up in 5th, with that pack kind of falling apart throughout that final run, at least being kind of the sitting duck there and getting forced out, at least still able to come home in 5th and secure a top 12 starting spot for next week.
Yeah, I think for Nate, it's the idea of there wasn't a whole lot to lose. He's going to start top 10 pretty much regardless. If that doesn't go his way, so he kind of lucked out by the fact that group kind of dwindled down. But for someone like Knutson and Rip, I think they would have benefited from a lot more cars being in that group, and they could have potentially made different moves. They all ended up very close to each other, but I'm sure Knutson probably wishes he had some momentum from the cars behind to be able to do something, but he did all he could there. Aiden Walker, big win in duel number 1, and honestly, I'd say this one was pretty calm, so I'm interested to know how duel 2 is going to go, and we'll hopefully get that to you soon. I believe we have Aiden Walker.
Hello.
I'll let Brockman take this one away.
Sounds good, Aiden. You got the win there. You spent most of that race, at least the second half of the race, kind of running, in the tire tracks of Stewart there, but then ultimately made the move. Tell us how it happened and how that last few laps. What were your thoughts and why'd you make that move on the final lap?
Well, I mean, I was just gonna try making a move anyways. I mean, I understand. Like I said, I was gonna work with Nate, but I've pretty much done nothing in OSRL up until this point, so I'm gonna at least try doing something, and not just sit in line, because I would rather start a little bit further ahead. But, yeah, just try backing up runs, try to see how I could actually make the move and things, which figured out, I think, with 3 to go, what I was gonna do with Wesley, which backed the run up, got to the inside, got past, and saw Justin went top 3 and went back up, and pretty much just took control at that point. Justin tried backing up a run, but just didn't have really any help since everyone got caught up behind, since we only had 5 cars in the pack, which I think that's probably the first time I've done a race with that little amount of cars in the pack, so. But to be fair, I don't really run the gym for much, but overall, really nice race. Nate, I still owe you, I know.
So what do you think about how that race played out and how this pack is racing? It seems like the top lane is the way to go. As we look forward to this next race and calling this next race here in the booth, what is making you guys want to run the top lane? Is it seem to be easier to stay in the gas on the outside compared to the bumps in the bottom? Is it just where the car's kind of pulling everybody as far as where everyone's going? What's kind of causing that?
Well, okay. What's probably mainly happening, especially since it's probably enhanced with it being the older version of Daytona, with all the bumps on the bottom. Since the car obviously has a little bit more side draft to the right rear, it'll usually make the top lane more powerful, but I think it's definitely enhanced because of bumps, because I've noticed it's pretty hard to stick on the bump with a consistent line to make it easy to push, which it's not exactly that we're locking bumpers or anything. It's just it's a lot harder to stay with someone ahead of you just going up and down. So yeah, it's definitely part side draft, part the track being so rough on the inside. So that definitely makes top lane very, very dominant. And Yeah, it seemed like if you tried setting up a run on the bottom, it just seemed to fall apart after a little bit, especially if the top lane had like a single bit of momentum. So, we'll see how that plays in the Speedway 250 next week. Should be a little bit easier to set up the bottom lane. It's just you're gonna need some good help to make it work.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of ask you how that full field next week will treat. What's your goal next week? If a win tonight, do you feel confident that you can contend for a win next weekend or next week?
Yeah, as long as everything goes well, I feel like I've kind of made an enemy with Nate now, but as long as everything stays calm, stay out of trouble, which seems to happen relatively quickly. Just staying out of trouble early on and just overall just staying out of anything that will cause problems. So, just try staying up front throughout the race, and hopefully be in position to win next Thursday.
Sounds good. Before we let you go, we'll give you an opportunity to shout anybody out or make any thank yous that you want to do before we let you go.
Well, I gotta thank my sponsors: Causal Motor Company, Blue Line Tennessee, Lively's Custom Diecast, Beamstock Cars, and SKS Motorsports. Brought a pretty good car tonight. Kind of last second decision to run, but we got it working, got it running, and brought the car home and all clean and into the show.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you next week and potentially chat with you next week too if you're able to get back up front.
Thank you.
Thanks to Aiden for stopping by and chatting with us and celebrating his victory in duel number 1.
Well, that's Aiden Walker, Duel 1 winner. And I don't know that he really made an enemy with Nate Stewart. I think Nate's going to be aware that that was kind of, he's a sitting duck that whole time. That's just how this package works. But that is Duel 1. We will go ahead and take a quick commercial break and get back rolling when Duel 2 is set up and about to roll off. From Split Second Broadcasting, I'm Elliot Henderson. He's Ross Brockman, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
In the sky if you got a dream. Learn nothing was blocking me. I was the problem, the only one stopping me. I didn't like it, I had to refocus. Now I'm devoted, I know where I'm going. Controlling emotions, I'm owning the moment. In order to get it, see, you gotta want it. Don't make a living break. Confessions over these 808s. Don't sleep on the key, better stay away. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'ma be the best. Came from the endless lane, roll games, bitch with the chest. Beating on my chest, trying to get my rest. Watch me while I flex. Every win is a blessing, and every L is a lesson. So when I run into rejection, I know it's only redirection. I see the blessings right beside me. The chances are quite unlikely. I do it like I'm in my Nikes. Don't make excuses, they never excite me. Quitting was never an option.
And we are back here for the Princeton Drugstore Duels at Daytona for the OSRL Season 11 Gen 4 Premier Series. We just got done with Duel 1. We got a good bit of excitement, at least one accident, and a pretty good battle towards the end between both the transfer spot and the final, the winner there, with Aiden Walker beating out Knutson and Pearson, as we've now learned, over in the first duel. And now we're going to get stacked up and ready to go with Ashley Kolonix, AJ Green, Josh Chin, and others here in Duel 2 to set the rest of this field. And we hope to also have the other 6 entries on top of those top 32 that make it in on their finishes in these duels. They're currently getting on pit road and gridding, about to go through their cycle back down pit road to check speeds. Brockman, what do we expect from Duel 2 here after, I'd say, a slightly calm Duel 1?
Yeah, you know, and I kind of talked about it in Duel 1 that there was some rumblings in practice, in the practice session that they had before these races, about how the top lane was pretty strong. Well, now they all saw that. So I think that's going to really change how this race goes. I think that, you know, initially on that first one, we had some side-by-side racing. I think it might sway it to the other side almost too much, where I think they're going to be fighting to maybe try to get to that outside, depending on if it works out. But I think that when you're in this big pack together at the start, 20 cars or so, I think that's going to be your opportunity to make up some ground and try to make that bottom work before it potentially breaks apart and the pack spreads out a little bit. So we'll see if it is a little crazier just because they kind of know what to expect. But who knows? They might also all get up to that top and race their way to the final lap to make the move. I think we definitely learned that first place, if it does get to that top side, rolling around single file, first place is kind of in trouble. But we'll have to see if that happens, or if we'll be able to get some side by side racing.
I do think we've got some names in here that are pretty synonymous with this series. I see, you know, Ashley Kolonix, Josh Chin, last season's champion, William Schmidt, Braden Movick, Kendall Carpenter's a big name. Quick note that Isaac Johnson, I know we mentioned him in Duel 1. I believe he was just registered for that session and wasn't actually racing. He will roll off 9th here in this session, and we'll go through that list quite soon. We're currently still gridding, but I think this is a star-studded cast. So to your point, I think these guys are going to know kind of what to do, especially based off of watching the first duel. Not to say the first duel wasn't a star-studded cast. We still had a lot of top names in there, but I think they'll be able to work with what they saw, and we might see top lane dominance again. But I honestly kind of think this is going to be the nuttier one, where these guys, I know guys like Kendall Carpenter aren't just going to want to be comfortable sitting 8th and rolling off this Daytona race about, you know, 16th or 18th or wherever that puts him. So we're gonna see some aggressive stuff here, and I think we might be in for a little bit more in these 30 laps than we were just a little bit ago.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this series is one that they're not ones to typically ride around and not be aggressive or even just race. Even quiet portions of their races in this series, it seems like they're out there to have fun and go after it. So even heard it from Aiden Walker talking about it after we chatted with him, just about the idea of, like, did he need to win the race? No, but he's gonna go for it. Might as well and have some fun with it and try to win. And yeah, there's bragging rights to get to victory, get to talk to us. That's always great. And yeah, we'll see who it is in this duel number 2.
I think it's all a bit of a learning curve too. You know what you're going to be able to do come next week when the big race is here, and you've got, you know, 200-mile race, and now you know what you can do on that last lap, coming to the white flag, going down the backstretch. You know, maybe making the move when he made it was the best opportunity, because going into 3, maybe Knutson gets there and he gets side by side with him, and then through 3 and 4 he's got to fend off that battle. He made the move across the start finish line, and it kind of gave him space and made them all go 3 wide and fan out behind him. It's a different story if it's happening down the backstretch or off turn 2 or into turn 3. So you know, maybe he learned that making the move when he did was actually smarter than when we're naturally more concerned about making it, which is down that backstretch. So yeah, I think it's all a good learning curve for these guys, and we get to see what they do here in Duel 2, as now they're rolling off. And if you're new here to Split Second Broadcasting, this is the online Speedway Racing League. They run Thursday nights, obviously. Gen 4, Season 11. A lot of great talent in this series. Former champions in this race as well. And a lot of different wins stacking up in this series, in this duel with the likes of Josh Chin, Kendall Carpenter, William Schmidt. Cole Freilich from Duel 1 is another big, huge name in this series. And we're excited to see it continue. Obviously, Jonathan Oates has taken a step back. Jack Painter and others have taken a bigger role as far as the adminship goes, and the league continues on, and we appreciate everyone's effort. And we're here on Split Second Broadcasting to give you the best coverage we possibly can. And I'm filling some time because we're going to come down pit road and check some speeds. And for the second time, Brockman, we get to talk about just kind of, I don't know, who do you think is going to stand out here as far as, dark horse picks and guys that you expect to kind of go up there and run up front?
Yeah, I was kind of looking at just kind of my past notes here, just some of the past winners. Josh Chin won the season opener last year after he did okay in the duels, but wasn't able to secure a victory the week before, but was able to get it in the long race, and that propelled him to the championship in the end. And then Kendall Carpenter is in this race. He's a past winner here at Daytona in the big race too. We talked about Freilich and Mo Perry, who were in that first race. They won the 200 a handful of years ago. So I think Josh Chin's going to be the guy here. He's obviously a multiple time champion in this league. He's starting third there. It'll be interesting to see what he does on the start. But yeah, I think another guy just right kind of not far behind him is William Schmidt, another one of those drivers that's a veteran in this series and going to probably have something to say about this race tonight.
It's always interesting to me that Schmidt hasn't really, I don't believe he's a former champion, and I don't feel that he's really had the recognition lately that he probably deserves. I mean, he started to run a lot better. I don't broadcast these on a weekly basis, so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase, stats and thoughts here, but he was really kind of a road course ringer previously, and now he's kind of come into his own and been really fast. He was a championship threat last season. Josh Chin obviously got that done, but I'm interested to kind of see how his development goes and how he continues to run well. And there's other guys in here that have been kind of one-trick ponies. Like I remember Braden Movick being really fast, and I believe Dover it was last season. So interested to see how these guys kind of come together. Both of them starting in the top 6 here, so they might have something to say. And obviously super speedway racing a lot different than anything else that we do, but a lot of big names in this duel, and I'm just kind of excited to see how it all turns out. 22 cars as well, so this will have more go homers at this point, and depending on where Colonix finds herself towards the end of this, we will see who exactly is in that cutoff spot. It could be about 18th this time, or closer to 17th or 16th, depending on where Colonix ends up running. I don't believe we're going green this time, so Brockman, any final thoughts as we set off to make one more pace lap and then set these cars loose?
You talked about it with some of these drivers, and we got a green flag out, but the pace car's still out there, so we might have added a lap there. I noticed that Movick was kind of rolling a little slow on the apron, then got caught back up. We got a couple other drivers back here on the apron. So maybe lining up. The lights are off now on the pace car, so I think we'll get going here this next time by. But yeah, I think that these drivers, you talked about the difference in how these drivers at different tracks, what they're good at. A guy like Josh Chin, who's won in this league, he's good at pretty much all of them. But I think for some of these drivers, you want to set the tone next week and try to get a good points day and try to start it off right. You hate to be in a series that runs full season and total points at the end. You don't want to be in a big hole after next week. So that's what's great about tonight, is it kind of gives you a mulligan. There's no points on the line. It's just your starting spot, and if you get to race next week for some people, but a chance to have some fun. And next week, though, we start tallying points immediately once we go green.
And season 11 here is I'm trying to get back to the schedule. It's a pretty long one. 17 races, no chase or kind of playoff format or anything. Just 17 straight up races with 2 off weeks somewhere in the middle there. And a lot of different track types. Obviously Daytona these first 2 weeks with the Duels now, and Daytona next week, and then they go off to old school Atlanta with Richmond and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve as the first few opening races. So a lot of different chances for these guys to make or break points. But we are off turn 4 as the schedule is right there, and you can see it all live. And pace car will go off one more time, and we'll get Duel 2 running momentarily. There goes pace car, and Ashley Kolonix will lead AJ Green, Josh Shin, Madeline Roden, and a whole slew of others across the start-finish line to take the green flag here at Daytona for Duel number 2 in OSRL.
Better start for that inside lane compared to the first duel. They're gonna get 3, maybe even 4 cars clear here. Oh, you got some spinners on the backstretch. 27 Bailey Thompson.
I do wonder if that was our first kind of bit of aero. We've talked about it all night, but I mean, these guys are obviously pretty solid at this. We haven't really seen anything crazy with how loose these cars get with someone tucked up behind them. But with a car right up behind you, it can get pretty free on exit, pretty light. So we may have just seen that first case of that as we go back, check the replay out, see what happened back here.
Like maybe Brett Bennett was also involved.
I said, luckily it only looked like a 1-car wreck.
Yeah, I don't think they hit anything unless maybe the outside wall here a little bit.
That was not
Each
aero.
other.
They, looks like a pretty big checkup in the middle of that corner, and unfortunately it just accordioned all the way back to the 27 of Bailey Thompson, and you said it, Brett Bennett, nowhere else to go, drove into the side of Thompson, and luckily, as we learned from the first duel, I believe they have fast repairs, and it looks like they do, so they're all good to go. And unfortunately, we'll slow down for a little bit, but you can see just big old accordion. Oh, it was actually Bennett that got turned into Thompson. Thompson nowhere to go, drove into Bennett. But we'll reset, restack, get ready to go again.
Nice job there by the 84 Gabriel Cruz to just make sure, like, a nice checkup there. I'm not sure who we were riding with there, but making sure to check up and see that, you know, it's so easy when you, especially on lap 1 or just after a restart, to just be like getting up to speed, wide open. You're not thinking you're going to have an incident in front of you, and sometimes you just kind of miss it, and that's an easy way to make a mistake. But nice job by a handful of those drivers to check up for the cars kind of getting sent out of the pack down the backstretch. That's a good spot if you're going to get sent out of the pack. Other than hitting each other, it's plenty of room down there to gather it up and get back in this. And now this is going to just kind of change up the order after you kind of maybe figured, okay, well, I got this person starting in front of me, this person starting behind me. You had that long pace laps, sitting on the grid that you're planning all that out, and now you only got a lap or 2 here, and you might have someone different to work with when you hit this restart grid here in another lap or so.
Yeah, they've extended it. Well, I don't know if they've extended it, but they're going to continue around another time. Usually you get 1 to go there, so we'll have a little bit more to look at. And honestly, I think it's just kind of a mental thing again at this point with these drivers, because to your point, it's a longer grid because it's duel 2. They're trying to prep everything and get going, and they had the longer pace laps in the first duel. So yeah, I think all these drivers are just kind of like, I just want to go, I want to go, and that's maybe kind of what caused all that. Everyone trying to get in the corner, big stack up, and then, you know, you got cars wrecking. So maybe they'll cycle it out this time, but who knows? I think the biggest question mark is what happens at the front now, because Josh Chin obviously was a really good pusher there, pushed Kolonix out, and made sure that bottom lane just moved. Now you've got Movic going to start in 3rd and Barrows in 4th. And it just makes you wonder, as they actually did shorten it up there, and we're going to go green this time by, but you know, is Movic going to have the same success, or is he not going to be able to push Kalonix out, and we'll see something similar to what happened in the first duel where that bottom lane doesn't really move?
I think it'll definitely matter mid-pack if some of these drivers, you know, you got to be on your toes if you're mid-pack to just stay together. If you kind of get in this lull of thinking, well, it's pack racing, I could draft right back up there. We saw it. Any drivers that fell back, they easily lost the draft. So see, like Carpenter right now has a little bit of a gap. You want to close that up and stay together here, because I think that'll be important to keeping the energy once we get going.
Really valid point. As pace car goes off, Kalonix will lead Josh Chin, Braden Movic, and Nathan Burrows across the line to restart here on lap 4 of duel number 2, and really get pushing on the top lane. That might benefit them, as Kalonix has a bit of a gap back to Movic, and we'll see if that kind of kills that bottom lane as they head off into turn 1.
Looks like Josh Chin on that outside lane here. Try to go for the lead. Nathan Barrows right behind, just staying together. That top lane kind of all coming together right now. You gotta be careful. Don't want to accordion together. If you're able to keep it straight and not run into each other, you can get a huge run, and that's gonna give Chin the opportunity to lead. But Kalonix on the inside gonna go side by side.
It was Levi Wolf moving back through the pack, trying to squeeze up to the top lane, didn't have a hole, went through the middle. Kalonix will lead that lap. Chin right on his door. We're going to get some side-by-side racing. Duel 2, not disappointing. Duel 1 was a little bit more relaxed. Duel 2 said, we'll give you a crash and then go racing right afterwards. Braden Movic almost dooring Josh Chin through 1 and 2 as they're trying to push all the way around this track through the corners, but Kalonix has the ground on the inside off of turn 2. Josh Chin trying to come back on the top.
And it's interesting how these lines are staying together a lot better in this race. Oh, we got a 3 wide back there. That's tough to 84 of it's a cruise there going through the middle. A couple others going to follow suit too. Be careful through there. Smalden in the 83. Get clear. The 27, Bailey Thompson, we saw in that wreck back out there. Trying to make up ground, and you might feel like that's your only opportunity is through the middle, and I think it's going to be pretty tough, this bumpy Daytona, to try to hold your line in that middle.
You can see that bottom lane doesn't really want to run the bottom. They're kind of sneaking up and running almost the middle through the corners, and that's just how difficult these cars are. Like, they're just kind of bouncing, and you can see the high line already starting to make ground. But as I say that, Chin moves to the bottom. Not a decision we saw at all in the first duel. They were really committed to that top lane. He's going to move to the bottom. The 90 of Barrows was pretty good at pushing there, but he's got Isaac Johnson tucked up behind him, and they are going nowhere. Chin back to the top. Kalonix to the lead. Will lead that lap once again.
Yeah, I think that 90 car on the outside with Barrows there, he's probably struggling a little bit. Just seemed like to stay together with Chin. I thought maybe Chin was thinking, well, I'm just going to jump down the bottom and try to bring that line forward, but now has to settle back in on that top lane. See if Movic gets a run here, if he decides to make any moves. Gonna stay, oh, yep, gonna jump to the outside.
That was a good call. The 90 of Barrows looks like he's a really good pusher, but kind of gets a little light and a little uneasy when Isaac Johnson gets right up behind him. I've seen him kind of dance around a little bit, but seems pretty comfortable getting up there and pushing Josh Chin. Movic to the lead, though, and that bottom line's faltering. They're all pushing, but they're just not going anywhere. Chin and Movic kind of tandeming out here. Movic to the point. Josh Chin right up behind him.
I saw off of 4 there. The 07 of Green, the 48 of Newton, 2nd and 3rd in line on that bottom lane. It just seemed like off of 4, they just kind of almost plow to the outside, and it just kind of checked up that whole bottom lane. Something that I think that makes that top lane so strong. We're starting seeing more drivers in the back right now in that inside lane jumping up to the outside. It's going to give this outside lane the power that we saw in that first duel, and great job by Movic to be able to make the move to the outside to grab the lead basically right before that bottom lane fell apart.
Unfortunately for Colonix, that bottom lane is gone. I mean, I guess the other side for Colonix is that they're already basically on the front row. They qualified in, they're locked in. So good to go for Colonix. None of this really matters. It's just kind of bragging rights. So is what it is. But that bottom lane does not exist, and now becomes the fear of, if you're side by side with someone, do you potentially lose a draft? This is when we saw guys start to kind of struggle with losing the draft in the first duel when they're side drafting and side by side, or someone catches a wall and checks the lineup. So for a whole single file line here, you want to make sure that you're staying packed together. And you can already see 5th, 6th, 7th kind of falling off a little bit. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. 3 wide back there for looks like about 15th or so, back where Colonix is. But Muvik continues to lead, 22 laps to go, 21 this time by, sorry, as Josh Chin all over the back of Muvik.
And you talk about the, losing the draft. We saw that in that first race, and then also just, the strength of that top lane. Those are things that we learned, but just by watching that first race. But not only did these drivers get to watch that first race, but this is just kind of a unique situation with your competitors where half of them are, the bottom lane, William Schmidt and Kendall Carpenter are going to try something here, but you have different drivers in these 2 races, and a lot of them are in team chats and maybe even helping each other out, talking like, hey, this is what worked for me in the first duel, this is what didn't. Another way to learn that's unique to just this race, just tonight, with 2 different groups racing in 2 different races.
Well, ironically, they're about wrecking back there for 15th or 16th. I was about to say, ironically, the pack has split. Trey Patton is 16th, leading another group. That's the transfer spot once again. So it looks like about the transfer spot decides to flip, and they're racing really hard back here in this group. You can see that's, I believe that's a 7 going to the bottom. That's Levi Wolf working with Colonix, who again, with Colonix being on the outside, technically the transfer spot is 17th and up. So you just need to finish in the top 17 as Trey Patton catches the wall. But Kendall Carpenter and William Schmidt just proved that 2 cars going to the bottom is not going to do anything to affect these guys at the front, and you need a group of cars. But from what we saw, it just doesn't look like that bottom line is going to work. It's just too bouncy. The bumps, something's going on with the car, and it is just affecting the handling and slowing the speed through the corner, and that top lane just remains dominant.
Yeah, I think the driver, we saw it in the first race, the driver that can kind of controls it is really second in line, because ultimately, not only did we see like second in line get the opportunity in the final lap to make the move to win, but we also saw, I think the second line, the second person in line was able to, decide, hey, we're done with this top lane, we're breaking it up, and then it kind of made it just no lane was dominant anymore. I think that also helped. There was just less cars. This one we got a bigger group. We'll see if we can keep them intact. But right now I think they're all going to kind of follow in together. It was looked like Jade Gray was the car that had some issues back in last now, but not out of it. We'll see. Just in case you get a caution, still got a chance to transfer if any of these drivers up here have an issue.
Well, man, they are adoring back here by Levi Wolf for this transfer spot. I was about to mention it. You were saying there's a lot more cars in this group. They were 3, almost 4 wide back here in this group with Colonix and others. Levi trying to get around that 48 of Chris Lilly, who had dropped off the pack. Shane Sweeney, Brett Bennett, others have all dropped off. I was going to say Carpenter and Schmidt got lucky that they stayed in the pack, but now they're almost the last 2 cars hanging on there. So I'll have to see how many guys hang on to that group, and considering this larger group back here is about 15th or 14th place, as they catch these stragglers that are starting to fall off, like Sweeney and Bennett, are they going to be able to pass them as easily as what these guys are doing to these single cars?
Yeah, and I noticed during that first duel, the secondary packs that kind of fell off, they immediately just started burning lap time, not being in that lead group. But it didn't take much after the lead group got to racing that I noticed that they were really fast and gaining on those last couple laps. Just obviously not a lot of time left. So I think if some of these groups get separated, you can always potentially chase down another group or chase down another driver that loses the draft. So got to be on it as Bennett and Sweeney fall back to that pack. We'll see if anyone else does, but that's just going to mix up that pack that's racing for the transfer spot, and I think that's going to be where our action's going to be potentially to get us an incident if we have one here in these final 16 laps.
Well, the benefit in the last race was the guys that fell off were all in groups of 3. Here you just had 2 guys fall off. Colonix is going to make the move around these guys with obviously nothing to lose. They can do that, and this pack back here is like about 7 or 8 cars, it looks like. So that's a much bigger pack than what they were dealing with in Duel 1, where 3 or 4 would fall off and kind of stick together. This is a good group of cars where if one car falls off the end of this main line, they're not going to be able to just jump in line with this secondary pack. So that's definitely going to be a problem, and they're going to need to basically try to keep up with that main pack, or they're not going to be in the show at this point, because with all these guys stacked up on each other, it's going to be really tough for them to try to maintain that transfer spot.
And you just wonder, this group is, it works so well to run that top lane. It's interesting to see them all kind of running middle to bottom here. And I think it's just a matter of who's leading gets to kind of make that call, and if second's going to follow along, that's where they're going to go. Might give these guys an opportunity. We see that top lane with the leaders kind of just keep everyone at bay, make it really hard to pass. I just wonder if you're any of these drivers in the transfer, you're probably wanting to move up. Like, let's go up to the top, so that way it's harder to make a move. I wonder what some of these drivers up near the front here are thinking, if they got a long time here to think about what moves they can make. You see this a lot in super speedway racing. When you get single file, you start thinking what if and start making your plans.
I almost wonder if this second group thinks that they can go catch down that first group. They're about a 10th or so quicker a lap. We'll have to see what it is this time by, but last time they were a whole 10th quicker. So it's not much, but if they can, figure that out and gain a couple tenths a lap, they might be able to close that gap. It's 7 seconds, but in reality, it's closer to 5 seconds with how far off the last car in this group is before they'll start sniffing draft. And yeah, they were another 3 tenths quicker there. So there's a chance that Colonix and Bailey Thompson can bring this thing back, and we can have, a secondary pack close up on them. But right now, there are 2 distinct groups, and you definitely don't want to lose that first group.
I wonder, those guys running that kind of middle lane, if that, just kind of shorten it up. Isaac Johnson keeps looking to the inside here for third. I don't know if it's just to poke out, get a little bit of air, or just, I always, sometimes we'll do that just because you want to be able to see. You know what they're doing in front of you is probably just staying in line, but you still want to be able to just poke out, see what's going on up there, see if they're doing anything, see what the gaps are to those lead cars, if they're trying stuff. But yeah, Isaac Johnson kind of just riding here, but ultimately about a half lane down on this 90. I wonder what Barrows is thinking, looking in the mirror, wondering what Johnson's doing. If gonna go for a move here, or keep it together. I also wonder if all of a sudden you get to these guys racing, does that bring that other group in a lot faster too? That other group might be hoping that these guys will start mixing it up before the last lap, like our first duel did, and maybe bring them back together.
Well, I know 2 guys that aren't going to pull out a line. That's Kendall Carpenter and William Schmidt. I think they're pretty dead set on where they're running. And I got to hand it to Levi Wolf back here, making all the moves in that 7 car at the end of this this second pack. They've tried everything, but no dice with, obviously one car you can't make moves, as Isaac goes way down, just kind of giving a good look around there. But I don't know. I don't know what these guys really have planned. I think, the second group definitely wants everyone to kind of race with a few laps left, but Isaac might want to make a move in the next lap or so.
I mean, is Johnson thinking, like, if I pull out a line, casually every lap, here he pulls down a little bit down the straightaway. If I keep doing that, then maybe when I make my move, it might take him a second or 2 to realize that I'm doing it. I don't know, like, if that'd be an interesting strategy to try to give yourself a second or two for your competitors to maybe be sleeping and make a mistake. But I just noticed on their camera there as these drivers are going down the backstretch, a couple lap cars with Glick and Gray coming up here that will maybe change the energy. We've seen that before in that first duel. That might mix it up here, and we'll see if that does anything. If they look like they're going to stay on the bottom.
Yeah, but it does present an opportunity to kind of go down there and get some draft. Maybe not Gray here as Isaac looks to the bottom once again. But if they catch Glick at the right time, you could jump down there and use that as a momentum gainer and kind of use some draft to your advantage and pull up a little bit. But at the same time, then you're going to have to jump through the middle, and I don't know. It's definitely a decision that will be kind of a split-second decision at the end of the day. So right now, Movic leads, going to come around to 8 laps to go. This pack looks pretty well together as the 90 caught the wall. Maybe that's why Johnson's been running down a little bit, but now they're 3 wide. That is Roten down on the bottom, and now they're completely split off from Josh Shin and Movic.
Oh, and Schmidt and Carpenter decided that was an opportunity, got to the inside, and the 84 Cruz did a huge block. Schmidt almost, definitely not on purpose, but almost turned the 84, but they were able to get it back going. That really killed the momentum for Schmidt. I think Isaac Johnson now here is going to have a little bit of a run. Don't know if he's going to do something. Oh, looks to the inside, now to the outside of Chin.
That was a weird situation. I don't know if maybe he gave Chin a really large bump and it just pushed Chin off balance. At the same time, the pack behind, as they're 3 wide, hit the wall again. Ashley Kalanis got out of line and dropped to the back. Not really sure. Maybe that's just preservation, as these guys are they're all over each other now. They just picked up, I believe that's a lap car of Glick, and that just cycled them all around. So Chin back up to 3rd now with that's actually the 47 of Richie Price in that pink car that I was looking at. I thought it was Roten a second ago. And now they're just all over the place. Movic to the bottom, Chin right behind, Isaac Johnson leading the top lane. Now Chin back up to the top and above Movic.
And the minute this happened, we can see it now. That second group, they gained about a second that last lap, just due to the energy and everybody moving around. So giving some second life here to that second group if they can get back up here. But yeah, that energy change of just having those lappers, having the car get in the wall, that just ultimately opened it up and now get this bottom lane running. I wonder if Movic can pull them forward and try to make a move here. We're going to have this lapper here in Glick that's just going to make it really interesting to see what he's going to do, just being kind of in the middle of this.
It looks like Movic so far going to be the biggest loser here, just going from the lead to they just don't have the run down the straightaways. And I mean, you could see him sitting there trying to side draft, but he's all the way back to Schmidt, all the way outside the top 5, borderline outside the top 10. That bottom lane just doesn't go anywhere, which is crazy to me because these guys back here in the second pack are making the middle and the bottom work just fine and still gaining time. But that line up there with arrow, side draft, I don't know what you want to call it, whatever it is not working for these guys. Chin leads, 6 laps to go. Isaac Johnson now in 5 laps to go, sorry. Isaac Johnson now in a perfect spot to make something happen because he doesn't really need to worry about losing a spot to Glick behind him.
And now that's kind of getting back single file. That second group just gained a few tenths that last time. That's obviously still gaining, but just not enough to get there if they're going to close at that rate. They're going to need these guys to mix it up again. But yeah, I wonder what Johnson's thinking here. Running second now. Obviously was running a little lower before, and stay right in the tire tracks of Chin here. I think just to kind of decide what his move's going to be here and see if he can keep it, if it's going to be at the end or if he's going to go before.
I believe that was Roden that just got shuffled out and now moved back. They were just running right there in about the 5th position, but That is Madeline Roten that just got moved out and will drop outside the top 5. And quick update behind, the 16th is still going to be your cutoff spot because of where Colonix is. Colonix has kind of moved to the back end of this pack, and I got to appreciate the effort to kind of stay out of the way of that transfer position in that race and kind of let these guys all race this out. It's a wrecking back there right in front of Colonix. Car down on the apron. And we will get a yellow for it. That is the 03 of Corey Rexford. Yep. They just all came off the corner and kind of collected.
So I think Rexford was running near that transfer, so.
Yeah, Rexford was a transfer. The 7 of Levi Wolf is now in that transfer spot. You could see, I mean, there's a bit of looseness, but it's just Levi's saying that he checked up. There is kind of a discrepancy with this car. You could be completely off the gas, but if the car in front of you is sliding and loose, they're going so slow at that point because they're out of traction that it kind of just pulls you two together regardless. So, unfortunately, for Rexford, that is going to be pretty difficult to come back from, even though it only is a couple spots lost from 16th to 20th. But being in that transfer spot and just having to fend off one driver, and now you're going to have to figure out what to do from there. That's not the greatest scenario, but with a green light checkered, anything's possible now.
Just looking kind of just through the chat, and I started thinking about this, and I'm like, just to add to our intrigue and how this race is going to end. I was going to say the fuel window tonight is about maybe 35 laps, and this is obviously a 30-lap race. We saw on the start some interesting stuff with the grid, and maybe even taking an extra lap before we went green. I kind of wonder, there's a few that are kind of asking, hey, is this going to be a quick yellow? Can we get back going with a overtime here? Could we potentially have a couple drivers a little close on fuel? So something to look at, especially if we get an additional caution or two and we extend this race to a second or third overtime. So something to look at, and see if anyone pulls down here and maybe grabs a little bit of fuel. I think most of them are going to stay out. Like I said, I think you're going to be okay with the fuel window you're at, but who knows?
Don't really see anyone pitting. I believe Colonix was the first one to come down, but again, starting on the front row, nothing to be here for. They're just here to finish the race. They're no chance from here to go up there and win with how we've seen this draft package work. So just come down, top off, make sure you can run at the end and not get wrecked for no reason. Everyone else that was involved in that incident, like Corey Rexford, coming down getting some tires. So yeah, looks like about your top 16 or 17, no change. 18th on back, either fresh tires or at least some extra fuel in it. And I believe Cooper Glick got the wave around, so we will have 21 on the lead lap. Jade Gray is the only person a lap down, unfortunately, which will all but eliminate them from any chance of moving forward.
And Glick getting the free pass here. We noticed, when Cooper was getting put down a lap, he was able to jump in and actually run third in line there. And I kind of would hope to, at some point towards the end there, if it went green, he would have maybe bailed out of there. But by staying in the draft, that obviously given him the best opportunity to get the free pass, and now gonna have a chance to get back up there, and we'll see if Glick can do anything with this free pass being back on the lead lap.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to maintain position, and with the fact that this is a dual race and there's transfers and everything, you got to try to put yourself in a spot where you can advance through. And with very few laps left, him remaining where he was now puts him in a spot to get the wave around or the free pass, and now puts him in a spot to potentially drive up into that transfer spot. So, some people might not like it, but what he did put him in a spot to potentially transfer into this race after how it all started. So can't really be mad about it, as it looks like Josh Chin will pick the top here, and we will go green this time by. And you talk about fuel, I think the only guys I would be worried about would be guys like Josh Chin, maybe Kendall Carpenter and William Schmidt after they tried to make that run. Those are, I'd say, probably the only three that have been pretty much flat out this whole time. I don't think anyone else would be concerned about fuel, but we'll have to see.
I wonder what this group here, we see William Schmidt and Kendall Carpenter are kind of, well, you talked about it in the middle of that last run, just kind of being stuck on the back end of this lead pack, kind of just find your friends and able to get a run going once that pack kind of had some mix-ups, but ultimately was kind of held up by the 84. And I don't blame the 84 of Cruz for making the block, but it slowed down Schmidt and Carpenter. Now they're lined up on that outside, going to be right behind this 83 of Marcus Smalden. So wonder, it'll be fun to watch those two, see if they have something for this lead pack, and if that top lane gets rolling again, they could gain a couple spots. And do they work together as they were earlier? Just find your friends where you find them. We'll see.
I think they have the best opportunity. You got to think, if Schmidt can get pulled out of line and get next to Marcus Smalden and get him and Chin disconnected, then they have the best shot here. But we'll see. Pace car pulls off. Isaac Johnson on the bottom is your second place runner. Josh Chin, your control car, will lead them to the green for the first green-white checkered attempt. Chin right to the bottom, though, and that's not going to be good news for the top lane. Kendall Carpenter is way off William Schmidt. Isaac Johnson back to the top. Chin to the top. They're going to cycle all over the place. This is going to be white knuckle racing all the way through.
Set it up for Barrows here to the inside. That really worked out for him. Gavin Newton going to be on his bumper. They're going to be moving forward here at least for a short while, but I think that top lane's going to have a bunch of momentum now as they all get kind of together here and rolling into 3.
There's only a couple of them down there. We got to see if they can find their way back up to the top, or if they're just going to be stuck. They might be okay to hang on for a couple laps if they can utilize some side draft. We're also keeping an eye back there for about that 16th, 17th place, as they're now 3 wide right next to Muvik, and that's Kendall Carpenter to the outside. But Josh Chin leads. White flag is out. Isaac Johnson in second. It's no different than it was just a few laps ago. The 83 of Marcus Smalden right there, as Schmidt to the bottom into turn 1.
A push from Muvik, kind of uneven bumpers that Carpenter almost got into. Muvik had to go to the inside. Here comes Johnson again, looks to the inside off the corner. Ooh, kind of having maybe some connection issues. Not a good time to have that. Here comes Schmidt with a big run.
And he's going to push Smalden into turn 3. Johnson goes to the top. He's going to go backwards. Smalden's trying to drive that thing through 3 and 4. He's getting loose. He's to the back of Josh Chin. Can he make a move? Chin to the top. Chin to the bottom. Smalden to the top. Here comes Schmidt. Chin, Smalden, Schmidt 3 wide across the line. Chin will get it by a nose back towards the back of the pack. I believe they're wrecking, but I believe Levi Wolf. It'll be Shane Sweeney, actually, as we've got a massive wreck on the turn 1 wall. Shane Sweeney will get the transfer window ahead of behind Levi Wolf and Bailey Thompson, and Corey Rexford, who was just in that accident at the end there, will miss out, with Nathan Barrows, Trey Patton, Cooper Glick, who ended up losing the draft, and Jade Gray, who also was a lap down. But Josh Chin is your winner with a 3 wide battle to the end. We said Duel 2 would be interesting because Duel 1 was a little bit more relaxed. You got exactly that.
All within just a few inches here. We're going to see the replay, but yeah, I think that Smalden had. You talked about it in 3 and 4. Had a great job of just staying in it to have an opportunity, and I just think that just kind of no momentum for either the 93 or the 83, and that brought Schmidt into there too. But 93 and 83 were just enough, and that battle for second is even. I guess you got to give it to the 83 just barely, but great finish to see 3 wide at the line.
Yeah, I'm sure Schmidt's going to be kind of hitting himself. If he got to Chin's, I think he kind of got connected to Smalden and it pulled him up into him. But if he got to Chin's quarter panel and laid on him a little bit more, it may have dragged Chin back. Here's that battle for that transfer spot. You can see Levi back there with Shane Sweeney. That is for 16th and 17th. Obviously, Ashley Kolonix finishes in front of them, so technically they were both in. They almost wrecked each other and took one of them out, but both of them transfer through with Kolonix finishing just ahead of them in 15th. We'll go ahead and show you a couple replays while we wait for Josh Chin to get in here and run some interviews, and hopefully we will have a full rundown of who's in, who's out, potentially where they're all starting, but at a minimum, who made it through and who unfortunately is not going to be able to run next week's Daytona event. But man, 3-wide battle for the win and side by side at that transfer spot. What a race.
And shout out to Marcus Smalden there for having a chance to win after starting out back, basically up 18 spots. I just looked over, I'm like, yeah, he started on the second to last roll and was able to drive all the way up there and have a shot at it in the end. Great job by him. A few of these others that moved up, Gabriel Cruz able to get a top 10 after starting mid-pack. Yeah, that's that was definitely the crazier one than the first one, but ultimately, shout out to Josh for a great job of just making sure once Smalden got to the outside, didn't cut him off, knew that like he had the position on him. It's all about just who's gonna get to the line. That's a veteran driver knowing what to do there, and sometimes it doesn't pay off when that happens, but ultimately it did tonight.
Oh, we're here. We've got Josh Chin. Does he have us?
I think I do.
All right. Well, I was not ready for a 3-wide finish. We talked about Duel 1 and Duel 2 being 2 different events, and fortunately, you were definitely a part of the more interesting one. Kind of walk us through that last restart and what got you across the line before everyone else there.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of got lucky there that Schmidt ended up kind of kidnapping Marcus up the track there. I knew Isaac and Marcus were gonna try and work together, and then Isaac had a blink there on the backstretch, and it took him out of it. So I figured the run was gonna get pretty big, and I was just gonna hang on through 3 and 4, and I knew they were gonna try and jump high. I didn't know if I was gonna have any chance. I figured I was just gonna side draft it back, and I kind of was able to cover Marcus early enough that he didn't just jump to my right rear and get me back, and just held him long enough for Schmidt to get a run. I was going to try and cover off Schmidt as much as I could, and Marcus kind of gave a hole there and got away from my right rear, and that let Schmidt get between all of us, and Schmidt getting in the middle is ultimately what won me the race.
So as eventful as that was, did you learn anything that you think you'll be able to use going into next week for the big one?
Yeah, a little bit. This package race is pretty similar to how it did last year, so a lot of the same stuff still applied. Me and Braden were kind of able to bubble draft and pull the field from the top side through that normal run. So it's a lot of the same stuff from last season, but just making sure that it still applies and kind of figuring out who knows what to do and who's going to be an issue if they're either being pushed or being the pusher. So yeah, there's a lot to learn. Obviously, with it being a 250 instead of 200 now, pit strategy will come in a little bit more, and especially with the field being broken up more, the way the first duel was, I think we'll see a little bit of field spread, and there's gonna be some people trying to actively work together.
And then obviously with the With the fact that you're coming off the championship last season, is this a big momentum boost for you, or is it just kind of business as usual for you to kind of get a good start to the season, but more look towards that second half and end of the season to try to back up that championship?
Oh, I mean, it's nice. I had a really, really long streak of bad plate racing, and the last year it's kind of come back to me. So that's been nice, but it doesn't help with anything else in the season. So being able to get the points from it is nice. Last season that definitely helped kick off the season really nicely, getting the win in the 200. But I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it's a speedway race, and there's only so much you can do, and you're contingent on what everyone else does. So you can't take too much from it. It's nice to be able to make some moves and get things done, but a lot of it is not in your hands.
Well, Josh, it's a pleasure watching you work and watching you win, and we look forward to hopefully talking to you next week as well. Before we let you go, you got anyone you want to thank for tonight's run?
Big shout out to everyone that puts on the league, puts on the broadcast. You guys, especially, being able to put this out in front of everyone is great for the league. And shout out to everyone, Team Hype, Channel 199, Team Chimera, Power Slide, Racecraft. Even though Isaac tried to knock me out of the line, and just everyone that runs and makes the league fun.
Well, that is Josh Chin. Appreciate you coming in doing that interview with us. We'll let you go and get to your admin duties and your celebration here, and we'll go ahead and cover up the rest of this. But thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Brockman, any kind of immediate thoughts before we go ahead and I know they're kind of finishing off the final lineup before we get that done, but thoughts on the fact that we kind of called it from the beginning about the fact that the first duel will be nonchalant, a little bit easier, or one or the Hello. All right, that's a fun issue. We're back. Yeah. So as I was saying, I was just asking kind of what you think about how we kind of just got the best of both worlds there. The first heat, obviously, the first duel went pretty, nonchalant and pretty relaxed, and the second one was kind of a little bit more chaos and a lot more racy. So I guess, how do you feel about going into next week and kind of where these guys' minds are going into the longer race as they kind of finish up the roster here?
Yeah, I definitely think they learned a lot. I think ultimately how it's going to go next week. Bigger field, but also, like we just heard Josh say it, like the idea of a longer race, and that's going to probably spread people out. You're going to have potential for green flag pit stops. That's going to pull people apart. There's going to be a lot to it. That's going to probably, though it's very different in the field size and laps, I think it's going to be very similar because of that. And it's just going to be stretched out over a longer run. So I think that it'll be fascinating to see. We had a couple of the drivers that had issues tonight. Cole Freilich, Kendall Carpenter's going to be starting mid-pack next week. Harry Grindell, some of these drivers that going to be trying to move forward and having to start mid-pack. Where Painter, Kalonix, Walker and Chin all having a great night and being able to have that track position right away to start the race.
Yeah, as mentioned, we've got a 250 miler up next week here on Split Second Broadcasting for OSRL Season 11 at Daytona. I'll kind of make this short so we can get off air, but how it boils down from our results is obviously Jack Painter, Ashley Kalonix locked in. Front row will start first and second. Aiden Walker and Josh Chin being the dual winners will line up third and fourth. Lock-ins are everybody from Duel 1 plus Corey Rexford, who was the first one out in Duel 2, as well as Trey Patton. So that is Nolan Sanford, Adam Harrington, Griffin Jones, Cole Freilich, and then, as I just mentioned, Rexford and Patton. Unfortunately, the three guys that missed the show are the three from Duel 2, Barrows, Glick, and Gray, who all kind of had issues towards the end of that race and couldn't put themselves in that top 17. So Levi Wolf, Shane Sweeney, who had to race their way in, Nathan Kiani, and Michael Deitch, who had really rough, or I'd say pretty close finishes there at the end, also found their way in. So the field is set, 41 drivers, and that is next week here on Split Second Broadcasting, the Speedway 250 for OSRL. I'm Elliot Henderson, Ross Brockman beside me, Jeff Johnson working the controls, and we are Split Second Broadcasting signing off for tonight, and we'll see you next week.